in here you'll see all of our stainless steel tanks. All of our wines will see stainless steel tank at some point in their life. The aromatic whites, so that would be our stainless steel Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, the Rieslings, Rosé. Those we call aromatic whites because they don't see any time in oak at all. They only spend their lives in stainless steel tanks, which are inert, they are impermeable by oxygen, so there's not going to be a lot of changing in that wine while it's in a tank. Additionally, all of these stainless steel tanks have cooling jackets on them, so we're able to temperature control them. That's great during fermentation because during fermentation there will be big heat spikes. The wines can get up to 80, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, so we like to keep them at a moderate temperature during fermentation, maybe between 59 and 65 degrees. A lot of the whites will be fermented in these tanks as well. When we make white wine, we start with the white grapes, so be it Chardonnay, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc. The first thing we do is we press them off. So all we want is the juice. We don't want the skins. Skins get composted. That juice, we then move into one of these stainless steel tanks. We let it settle for about a day or two before we rack it, which means we take all of the nice clear juice off the top, leaving any of the pulpy stuff in the bottom of the tank. Once we get nice clear juice in one of these tanks, that's when we can initiate fermentation. Usually we'll add a known yeast strain, but we have been known to occasionally experiment with native and wild yeasts that just grow naturally on the surface of the grape. After the fermentation of a white wine, especially these aromatic whites, really all we need to do is clarify it, filter it, clean it up a little bit before it can go into bottles. So those wines are ready to release within a couple of months of fermentation. Oak-aged white wine, however, for instance, a barrel-fermented Chardonnay or our reserve Chardonnay, if it's barrel-fermented, that means that it was fermented in one of our oak barrels, which is kind of fun, a little bit messy. You can't really temperature control an oak barrel. You don't have a cooling jacket around that, so it's sort of left to the whims of the yeast. If it gets really high in temperature, it gets really high in temperature. You can also ferment in tank and then later age it in an oak barrel instead. The red wines also see time in these tanks as well. For some of our larger lots, like Cabernet Franc or Merlot, we will ferment in some of these really big 1,100, 1,200 gallon tanks. You can tell that they're red fermenters because of this door on the bottom. If it's got a door on the bottom, it means that we're able to open up the door and shovel out all the skins at the end of fermentation. That's because with a red wine, you want to ferment with the skins. That's how you get all the color into the wine. So all the color is in the skins. The juice itself is clear. The color is in the skins. So that would be an example of a red wine fermenting tank. You could also ferment in some of these little tanks too. With some of our smaller lots of red, we'll do a small amount of Malbec, of sometimes Pinot Noir, of Petit Verdot. Those will be fermented in a small 1-ton bin. That's sort of just an open top bin, cannot temperature control it. It just holds 1 ton of fruit. And during the fermentation process, as the alcohol is being created and yeast are converting sugar to alcohol and carbon dioxide, all the carbon dioxide is lifting up the skins to the top of the tank, which means you have a big cap of skins and all the wine is underneath. So if you want to mix up the tank a little bit, maintain a consistent temperature throughout the entire tank, we'll take a little tool like this. This is our punch down tool. You just get on top and you punch through the cap and you mix it up. And it's a really good arm workout. And you mix it up maybe 2 to 3 times a day depending on the lot and depending on how much color extraction you're looking to get. When those red wines are finished fermenting, we'll take all the wine out of the tank, we'll pump it out into another holding tank, one of these, whatever tank is open, and then we take those skins and we squeeze out all the rest of the wine from them. We'll use the same press that we use to press off our white grapes. We use it to also press out the rest of the red wine. About 15% of the wine is kept inside those skins, kind of like a sponge. So the wine that comes out of that tends to be a little bit more tannic, a little more bitter, harsher. We'll sometimes keep it separate, but it usually will become reincorporated into our final lot. It's still perfectly delicious wine. We'll also see we have a bottling line here. This is a really nice bottling line. We're able to do about 2 cases per minute on this bottling line. It has 8 spouts to fill up bottles. One of the few wineries in the region that has a bottling line of this size, so we're really lucky. It makes quick work out of bottling. Have someone on one end, someone on the other end. Someone puts the bottles on, the other person takes the bottles off. It works like a well-oiled machine when it's well-oiled. So come on in, I'll show you the barrels also. Pardon all of the hoses everywhere. So here you'll see some of our barrels where we've got our 2017 reds kind of resting until they are released. We like to age our reds anywhere from 8 months to a year and a half. It kind of depends on the lot. We'll be tasting them regularly just to sort of see how they're evolving over time. If we decide that a wine is ready to come out of barrel, it's a pretty easy thing to do. We just pump it out into one of the tanks in the other room. First, of course, we'll taste through everything, make a mock blend to make sure that's how we like it, of course. Sometimes we'll end up taking a barrel from another lot, like, oh, it's mostly Cab Franc. Well, what happens if we added a little bit of Merlot, you know? Kind of play around with it before we take it out of barrel and assimilate it in a tank. Most of the barrels we use are French oak, but we are also known to use a little bit of American oak and Hungarian oak as well. They are 3 different species of oak tree, and each one will impart a different flavor profile onto the wines. French oak is sort of considered the industry standard. American oak we associate more with whiskey and bourbon and tends to impart more of a vanilla and coconut flavor into the wine. And Hungarian oak, like this big one right here, Hungarian oak is known for adding kind of a spicy character, like clove, allspice, baking spice. So we're known to use that for our Chardonnays. These barrels previously held our reserve Chardonnay. We took them out after about 8 months of oak time recently. And if you'll follow me back this way a little bit deeper, been doing a lot of labeling and bottling lately. That's why we've got case goods everywhere. My itty bitty makeshift lab is down here also, so we can run regular analyses. The one I've got set up here is for aeration oxidation. That's to determine the amount of free sulfur in your wine sample. So we will add sulfur in the form of potassium metabisulfite as an antimicrobial and antioxidant agent to the wine, but we like to test regularly to see exactly how much sulfur is in the wine. We don't want to have too much, but we also don't want to have too little. So this cool little device will bubble air in through an acidulated wine sample, and it effectively turns any of the free SO2 into sulfuric acid, which is distilled over and caught in this upper flask, which has a 0.3% hydrogen peroxide solution in it. So I'll take that top one that turned purple, I'll take that upstairs and titrate it to determine exactly how much sulfur we have in our wine. And the last room that we like to show off on our tour is our wine library. In here we have bottles that date back to the 1960s. Benmarl was, of course, started in the 1950s, so it's typical for a winemaker to hold on to a couple cases or a couple bottles of every vintage, not just for, you know, seeing how it evolves and how it tastes over time, but just for posterity as a little piece of history. Some of these bottles, I'm sure, don't taste very good at all anymore, but it's still cool to have, so we usually don't touch them. We add a few every year. Some of the more recent ones over here we see are like 2006, 2005 Slate Hill Red, Baco Noir, which is really nice. And also, we have one of our ribbling racks here for our traditional method champenoise sparkling wine. This is a Blanc de Blanc, which means white of whites. Effectively, it's a Chardonnay made in the champagne style for sparkling wine. The way you do that is you start with kind of younger Chardonnay. We'll pick our Chardonnay for sparkling wine about a month earlier than the rest of our Chardonnay. We want it to be a low alcohol wine to begin with and high acid. So we will make the base wine. It'll be, as mentioned, high acid, low alcohol wine, and then we will bottle it in these pressure bottles, add a little bit more yeast, add a little bit more sugar, and put a crown cap on it so that it will undergo a secondary fermentation inside the bottle. That's what gives it the bubbles, is the carbon dioxide from the secondary fermentation. Meanwhile, we will store them upside down like this, and somebody comes through every day and does what we call riddling, and that's when you do a little shake and a quarter turn. Shake and a quarter turn to kind of encourage all that dead yeast to end up in the neck of the bottle. So when we eventually do get ready to put it on the shelves upstairs, we need to disgorge it. We need to get all that yeast out of there, because you don't want a big old yeasty glass of sparkling wine. So we slowly turn it forward, pop off the crown cap, it spits out the yeast, then we can flip it back up on its right ways, top it up a little bit, put on a cork or a crown cap, label it, and it's ready to celebrate with. It's definitely a labor of love. This is 2012 vintage, so it's been in bottle for maybe 3 to 4 years, which means it's developed some really nice kind of malty, biscuity flavors going on from this wine. We only have a little bit left of it. So yeah, that's the cellar tour of Benmarl Winery. I am Laura, assistant winemaker.